Welcome to the Black Hour Stories, where true places and terrible endings meet. Tonight's tale begins with a five-star home that looked perfect on the screen, but one guest found out too late that some listings come with more than hidden fees. The old farmhouse on Hollow Bridge Road looked peaceful in the photos. Soft lighting, white curtains, and a wraparound porch under thick oak trees. Lauren booked it for a weekend alone to finish some freelance work. The owner's messages were polite, almost too polite, and the price was lower than it should have been. She figured she'd gotten lucky. When she arrived, the house stood deep off the road, half hidden by brush. The air smelled damp, like rain and old wood. The lockbox code worked fine, and the front door creaked open slow, heavy, like it hadn't moved in years. Inside, the air was cold, even though the thermostat read 72. The place was spotless, a little too spotless. The furniture looked unused, the bed too neatly tucked. But the strangest thing was a guest book on the coffee table, old-fashioned, with a pen tied to the spine by twine. A note on the first page said, "Every guest must sign before their stay is complete." She thought it was cute. She flipped through a few pages, all blank. By dusk, Lauren was in bed working when she heard it, a steady knocking from downstairs. Not the door, but something inside the house. She went to check, thinking maybe the plumbing. The sound stopped when she stepped off the last stair. She walked through the kitchen, the living room, then back toward the front door. Nothing, but when she turned to go back upstairs, the guest book was open on the table again. Her pen sat beside it. The next knock came from the wall beside her, louder this time. The whole frame of the house seemed to groan. Lauren told herself it was the wind, but the air outside had gone still. No branches moved. She decided to leave the lights on and sleep, but every time she drifted off, she heard someone walking on the porch, slow steps, heel, then toe. The boards creaked under a weight that wasn't there. At 2:43 a.m., the motion light outside flashed on. She looked out the window and saw a shape standing by the oak tree. Not moving, not breathing. The light went out again, and when it came back on, the shape was gone. In the morning, she packed up early. She didn't sign the book, she just wanted to go. But when she reached the front door, she saw muddy footprints leading from the porch into the kitchen, bare feet too long, toes dragging like someone had been pulled. Her phone buzzed with a message from the host. "Please don't leave without signing the guest book." Lauren froze. She hadn't told anyone she was leaving. The knock started again, hard this time, from behind her. She turned slowly. The book lay open on the table. Her name was already written on the last page, shaky, smeared like someone had signed for her. She dropped her keys, ran out the door, and didn't stop driving until she hit the interstate. Weeks later, the listing disappeared from Airbnb. A new one popped up nearby under a different name. Same photos, same porch, same curtains. And in the single review that appeared under it, the guest had written, "Signed the book, can't leave now." The first story spread around travel forums for months, but it wasn't the only one. Another guest, this time a couple, had their own stay go wrong in a different state, one that never made the news but left behind something darker. Ethan and Riley had been on the road for a week, driving cross-country after graduation. They were tired, broke, and sick of cheap motels. When they found a cozy-looking basement suite on Airbnb for $40 a night, they thought they'd scored a deal. The listing showed brick walls, a tidy kitchenette, and a cheerful note from the host. "I live upstairs if you need anything." The reviews were all 5 stars, each one short and vague. "Nice stay. Would book again." When they arrived, a gray-haired woman opened the door before they could knock. Her smile was wide but somehow wrong. Her voice was soft and flat as she handed them the keys. "You'll hear me walking sometimes," she said. "Old floors carry sound." The basement smelled like dust and bleach. The single window was half covered by soil from the outside, so it was always dim, no matter the time of day. But the strangest part was a locked door at the far end of the hallway, heavy wood with 3 metal latches. That night, they watched a movie on Ethan's laptop until the sound of slow footsteps began above them. Back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm never changed. Riley tried to laugh it off, but after an hour, even she got quiet. At 3:12 a.m., something shifted under the floorboards, not above this time, but beneath them. A soft drag, like someone crawling below the basement itself. Ethan put his ear to the floor, and a knock came back, right where his head had been. They jumped, laughing nervously, convincing each other it was pipes or rats. But when they went to bed, the sound followed. 3 knocks, always in a row, always right before silence fell again. By morning, the old woman was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway. They thought maybe she worked early until they noticed fresh dirt scattered near the locked door. The air felt heavier there, like the space beyond it was sucking the warmth from the room. Riley leaned close. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. From behind the door came faint, rhythmic tapping, the same 3 knocks, slower now. Ethan pressed his ear against the wood. A whisper came through, dry and distant, like breath scraping through gravel. It said, "Let me out." They ran, packed everything, left the key on the counter, and swore never to mention it again. But a week later, Riley got a message on her phone. No profile picture, no name, just, "Thank you for opening the door." She hadn't replied, but she showed Ethan the message. He went pale, because the truth was, when they left, he had unlatched that first lock. He didn't even know why. It felt like something had guided his hand. 2 days later, local news showed a photo of the house, yellow tape across the yard. The story said police found a sealed room under the basement, older than the house itself. Inside were dozens of old ID cards and a wooden chair with chains fixed to the floor. They never found the old woman. The listing stayed up for another week before disappearing, replaced by a new one titled "Cozy Lower Apartment, Recently Renovated." The first review said, "Great price, just ignore the knocking." The third story came from a woman named Tara, who booked a small guest house outside Asheville for a weekend retreat. She was an artist, just looking for quiet and space to work. The listing promised total privacy, a cabin set apart from the main home, surrounded by woods thick enough to swallow sound. When she arrived, the host wasn't there, just a key left in a chipped ceramic bowl by the door. The place was simple but nice. Pale walls, a tiny kitchen, a single bed by a big window facing the forest. Everything smelled faintly of cedar and soap. It was only after she unpacked that she noticed the photograph. A framed picture on the wall near the door, a woman standing in the same room, smiling toward the camera. The odd part was the mirror behind her. In it, the reflection showed the woman's smile, but her eyes were shut. That first night, Tara painted until midnight. The woods outside were alive with quiet noises, branches snapping, wind moving through leaves. Then, at exactly 12:47 a.m., everything went silent. Even the crickets stopped. The stillness lasted a long time before she heard a new sound, a soft creak near the window. She looked up. Nothing moved, but she could feel someone standing there, just beyond the glass. The next morning, she found a wet handprint on the outside of the pane. It was long and narrow, pressed so hard the outline of each fingertip was visible. She laughed it off at first, thinking maybe the condensation had shifted in the night. But when she turned to leave, the photo on the wall had changed. Now the smiling woman was gone. Only the empty cabin showed in the picture, and a faint pale blur standing near the bed. By evening, the air inside the guest house felt heavy, charged. The shadows stretched wrong across the floor, bending toward the bed even with the curtains drawn. She tried to read, but the pages shook in her hands. That's when she saw movement in the reflection of the window. Someone was sitting on the bed behind her. She spun around, no one there. But the pillow was indented as though someone had just risen from it. Tara slept in the car that night. She drove into town at sunrise and called the host. A calm older man answered. When she explained what happened, he just sighed. "You shouldn't have stayed alone," he said. "The guest house isn't meant for single travelers." She didn't ask what that meant. She just drove back to collect her things. But when she opened the cabin door, the photo was gone from the wall. In its place was a new one, a picture of her sleeping in the car outside. Her heart nearly stopped. She hadn't taken it. That afternoon, she filed a report with the local police. They checked the property, but found no signs of forced entry, no cameras, and no trace of anyone else. The guest house was removed from Airbnb the next day. 2 months later, a new listing appeared in the same area under a different name. Artist's Retreat, perfect for one. The cover photo showed the same pale walls, the same bed, and on the far wall, that same photograph, now with 2 figures in it, both blurry, both facing the camera. Sometimes a listing disappears for a reason. Sometimes it comes back wearing a new name, waiting for the next guest who doesn't read too closely. Which of these stories creeped you out the most? Tell us where you're listening from in the comments, and if you're brave enough to open another door, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales from the Black Hour Stories.